Welcome back. I'm joined right now by the founder and CEO of IMDb, Needham, and director Nicolas Winding Refn. Give it up for him, ladies and gentlemen. Carl, we know what you did. We're sitting on what you created. Thank you, man. For those of us who've spent most of our lives going, who was in that movie? You made our lives easier. We know that.
Well, can I just say that this is just crazy for me because I started as a fan. Just a kid at home, in love with movies, and here I am sitting with two brilliant directors who I admire.
One brilliant director and one employee.
So it's great to be here. It just shows.
Look out! Wind's taking stuff
down. Follow your dreams. You never know where it's going to go.
Absolutely. Speaking of dreams, man, you're a filmmaker. You made many flicks, including Drive. What is the series that we're talking about?
Too Old to Die Young.
And it's not so much a series as somebody said it's like a 20-hour movie. Is that correct?
Well, close to it. I decided to do a TV show, but when I began the process, I realized I didn't really want to do a TV show. I just wanted to make a really long movie.
Right.
And that's what streaming can do. So very luckily, I got Amazon to give me the money, and I went on and did a 13-hour movie that you can now see on Prime.
What was it like to work at that length? I know in movies you tend to do what you want with the length, but to be able to tell a story with that much taffy pulling must have been amazing.
Well, it's a bit, I like fetish, so it's just being fetish. Instead of 6 weeks, it's for 10 months.
Right.
So for 10 months, every day, I would just go to work. What would I like to wear? What would I like to see? How would I like to feel? And after 6 months, you go a little crazy because it's too much freedom, and you still have 4 months to go. So it was heaven.
Is the mark of a great director a lack of clothing on the bottom leg, man? I love that you're in shorts. Look at us. We have so much pride. We're like, ladies, look at our gams. We're showing them off.
Well, I think it's a kind of a European thing in a way.
Is that what it is? Have I been European this whole time?
Yeah, I mean, we love nudity in Scandinavia. We invented pornography and...
Is that where it comes from, Scandinavia?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We don't wear a lot of clothes in our house, and we celebrate nudity, actually.
This is clearly where I'm going wrong. So you shot in sequence, is that right? Tell us about the kind of like developing the show from start to finish.
Well, I always shoot in chronologically order because it makes me just go to work every day figuring out what I like to feel and see. And, it was a very simple process. I had an idea about sex and death and religion. And I came up with the title called, Too Old to Die Young, like a riddle, in a car in Los Angeles. And from then on, I contacted Ed Brubaker, who's one of the great graphic novel writers, to come and help me create it. So we created it together.
Brubaker worked on this?
Yeah.
That's Comic-Con royalty, man.
I touched the royalties, and so we spent about 7-8 months writing it, and then we brought on another writer called Hallie Gross. So I had gone to Paris to meet Alejandro Jodorowsky to have a tarot reading, because I always have a reading of his. And the tarot said that I needed a mother, because every project has a father and a mother.
Right.
And so I went out and we got Hallie, and then we became 3, and then very soon afterwards I started shooting. And it was basically just, the idea of chronological order is that you force everyone to move forward. I mean, you were talking about the sequence concept. You're out of sequence and you suddenly see, oh, I didn't know that was the ending.
Yeah.
But here it's like painting. So it's literally like you paint, and then you have a whole, about 200 people behind you working on the color line, and I'm colorblind,
right.
So which makes it even sometimes more difficult. But it is extremely pleasurable because there's just this need of, it's like an emotional outlet every day. You're cleansing yourself more than anything else. And through fetish, which what I find, art is all about in some ways, is your fetish. It's just like you're cleansing everything in you. And the whole show is about, sex and violence and mayhem and religion and death and a lot of humor and philosophy.
So talking of cars, now without this kind of coming out the wrong way, some of the best things in your life happen in cars. And as the director of Drive, which is playing on IMDb TV, which is our ad-supporting streaming channel, very popular movie. Tell us a story about how Ryan Gosling ended up in Drive.
Oh, well, it has been some time, so I guess I can perform it. So I was in America working on a movie called Dying at the Light with Harrison Ford.
Right.
And I was really into making this film. It was a beautiful script written by Paul Schrader, the great American screenwriter. And it was a spy movie, and Harrison Ford was going to die. So I thought, as a Scandinavian, if I could go to America and kill Harrison Ford, that would be an achievement in itself. So I was really dead set on this. Hollywood, as you know, is all about meetings.
Yeah.
And then maybe something happens, usually it doesn't, but when it happens, it happens. And a meeting was set up between myself and Ryan Gosling, and we decided to meet at a restaurant in somewhere. I didn't really know LA very well, but I was staying in Santa Monica, and he was in somewhere in Hollywood. The problem was that I had come in the day before, and on the plane I had gotten really sick. I'd gotten the flu. Mm-hmm. And Harrison Ford, being the great American, had of course, picked me up at the airport and driven me to the pharmacy and got me these really heavy flu drugs. Now, I don't do drugs, so I took these things and I was high as a kite. So
Welcome to America.
Welcome to America. And so I'm in my hotel room. I can barely look straight. I am floating around. I crawl out of bed. I get into a car. I'm 20 minutes late. And I stumble into the restaurant, and there sits Ryan. And, he's obviously a very beautiful man. And I sit down next to him. And, rather than sitting across from each other, he's sitting on the side like this. So I sit down, and I look straight because, you're fever, you're ill, you don't really want to move your neck. I mean, men are very weak when we get sick.
Yes.
It's like my wife says to me, if you ever had to give birth, you would die. So I don't look at him. And we're kind of talking, exchanging, we'd never met. He had seen my work, and I wasn't that familiar with his. But we were talking and back and forth, and it wasn't really happening, and about an hour into the dinner, we had kind of talked about this book called Drive that had been floating around as a script, and he was interested in doing it, and I had read the script prior to this meeting, but I was very high, so I couldn't really remember anything out of it. And I said, but I was really into just killing Harrison Ford, and I was really going to pursue that. And it was like, oh, okay, well, fine. So that was that dinner. But then I was too cheap to get a taxi, and I thought, can you give me a ride home?
Wait, Harrison Ford picks you up from the airport, and then you ask Ryan Gosling for a ride home?
Yeah.
That's not how we do it in America, man.
There's a reason for this, because how many times have you failed your driving test?
Well, I don't have a driver's license. I failed 8 times. So I do a favor by not driving. I make you safer.
Right.
You're actually alive, not because of your heart attack, because of me.
Because you're not on the road.
So he says, sure, I'll give you a ride, But what I didn't tell or reveal was that prior to this meeting, Harrison Ford had declared that he didn't really want to die. So the film was just unraveling, and I was like trying to save it by persuading him to die. Anyway, we go out of the restaurant, we get into his car, and we're driving along. And you know that when there's like a blind date that didn't go well? And you have this kind of, there's going to be no action, there's going to be nothing. It's just like, say goodbye and get on with our lives. So we're sitting in a car, and we're driving, and in that awkward silence, and to kill that, Ryan turns on the radio. And it's soft rock. So, REO Speedwagon's I Can't Fight This Feeling Anymore starts to play. Now, I very much work conceptually, so if I get an idea, that becomes like the objective.
Right.
So we're sitting in a car, and when you're very stoned and very high, and you're feverish, and you're kind of just all over the place, you know, you start to kind of nod along a little bit. You start to sing the lyrics, but because you're stoned, your hearing has gone down, I think. So I turned it really obnoxiously loud, and then I really start singing the song. You know, I can't fight this feeling anymore. And then a lot of things are happening at that moment. We just had our second child, who was, you know, very young at that time. I was in LA, we live in Copenhagen. What the fuck am I doing here? Harrison Ford won't die. The whole thing is a disaster. Life sucks, and it's over. And so I build myself with friends, and I start crying. So
In the car with
tears
Ryan Gosling?
are falling down my cheek as Ryan is driving his car, looking just straight ahead. And I get this idea. I get this, oh my God. And I go, I know, we're gonna make a movie about a man who drives around in a car listening to pop music, because that's his emotional relief. And I scream it in his face in his car. And he's just driving. And then he very slowly turns to me and he thinks and he says, I'm in.
The art of casting Ryan Gosling, man.
So we had a love affair.
The crazy thing, the crazy connection here that we have with this. So my wife and I are celebrating our 30th wedding anniversary.
Oh my
on
Lord,
Monday.
congrats!
Hi, sweetie.
Congratulations.
Good Lord, man.
30 years. Our song when we were dating was none other than REO Speedwagon's Can't Fight This Feeling Anymore. 30 years ago on Monday, it was our wedding dance. So what a small, bizarre, interconnected
That song has power, man.
World.
Who
Yeah.
knew? REO Speedwagon's like, we should be getting paid a lot more for that song. That's beautiful, man. Give it up for Nicolas. Give it up for Carl, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Just a reminder, if you want to watch Nicolas's film Drive, you can watch that movie right now. So many more available for free on IMDb TV. IMDb TV. Mallrats is there too. Check them out.